Darkcast Network. Come to the dark side of podcasts. We have cookies.
Cookies? Me love cookies.
Hi, I'm Heather.
And I'm Dylan. We are Mountain Murders, an Appalachian true crime podcast dropping weekly episodes every Sunday.
Our show offers well-researched cases with unique storytelling and southern flavor.
Stories so good you'll want to sop them up with a biscuit.
Ooh, I pull back the curtain on lesser-known and often obscure regional cases from Georgia to Maine, exploring the darkness that lurks deep in the heart of Appalachia.
And I react with profound statements.
You mean profoundly stupid statements?
Something like that.
We're not your stereotypical hillbillies.
But we do like moonshine.
It'll tickle your innards.
Join us every Wednesday for Mountain Murders Offbeat.
Offbeat is a mini episode covering a variety of topics from true crime to conspiracy theories, the paranormal, and Appalachian-centric subjects.
Find Mountain Murders anywhere you download podcasts. Hit subscribe today to catch up on our latest episodes or binge our catalog.
This is a true crime podcast. My language at times can be kind of shitty, and I speak of terrible, heinous crimes. Listener discretion is advised. Hey there, Rainbow Warriors, and welcome to Beyond the Rainbow, True Crimes of the LGBTQ+. I'm your host who freaking sparkles, CJ. The True Crime Paranormal Festival in Austin was awesome. I met so many wonderful people, including fellow podcasters and potential resources. It was absolutely amazing. The festival organizers and volunteers did a fantastic job and put on a great event. However, I did have a scary moment on Saturday night. Austin was pretty much 108 degrees every day we were there, and the outside, it didn't cool down too much after that. It was Saturday night around 11 p.m., and I'd been outside since probably about 10 p.m., trying to get my extra steps in. And it wasn't as hot as it was when the sun was out, of course. I also had hydrated all day with water. And I mean, I drank tons of water. But I found out the hard way, water in that kind of heat just doesn't cut it. So after being outside an hour already, my friends Courtney from a Nefarious Nightmare podcast and her co-host Amanda's niece Cheyenne came downstairs. And we were all hanging out near the parking garage. All of a sudden, my world started spinning, and I started to feel nauseated. I told Courtney I felt like I was walking drunk, although I hadn't taken a sip of alcohol all weekend. Just a minute later, the dizziness really took over, and I told Courtney and Cheyenne that I just didn't feel good. Courtney told me to sit down, and I sat against the door to where the elevator comes down. And the last thing I remember saying to them was, I hope nobody wants to come out this door. The next thing I remember, Cheyenne was rubbing my chest very hard, saying, CJ, wake up! CJ, wake up! It was so much like when you see someone pass out in a movie. You know, the voices were muffled, and my vision coming to was really blurred. Courtney was on the phone with 911, and I told her to please cancel because I don't have medical insurance. But the dispatcher, he wouldn't hang up until he spoke to me. She handed me her phone, and I really tried, but I felt like if I talked to him, I was going to throw up. I handed her back the phone and said, I can't. He insisted, though, on speaking to me, and he wouldn't cancel until he did. I asked Courtney to put him on speaker. He asked me my name, the day of the week, and who the president was. I gave him the answers, and for the president question, I said, well, it ain't fucking Trump, thank God. I think he knew after that answer I was going to be okay, and he canceled the paramedics. Cheyenne has a wheelchair that she takes everywhere due to a condition she has causing her to black out. Courtney then called her co-host Amanda, who was up in their room, and she asked Amanda to bring the wheelchair down. They helped me in it, and they wheeled me to my room. Instantly, when I got into the air conditioning, I felt so much better. I took a shower, and the lady stayed with me for about an hour to make sure I was okay. The next day, I learned I needed electrolytes to avoid heat stroke. So ever since, I've been pumping up on my electrolytes. And what was super scary at the time has turned into a fun little story. And my heroes are the Nefarious Nightmare Ladies. What I originally wanted to do with this episode was to take you along on my journey of researching this case and going to the True Crime Paranormal Festival. At the festival is where I met up with a family member of a victim whose story I will be covering this episode. But I tell ya, every time I went back to reread what I had, the story just wasn't flowing as nicely as I would have liked. I've rewritten it about 3 times now because I wanted it to be cohesive and to make sense, as I'm sure you would like for it to make sense also. Otherwise, we might all just pack it in and call it a day. I decided to scrap the idea of taking you on my journey, because the most important thing is the victim of our story, and getting what happened to him correct and out there in the universe. I will tell you the family member I met in Austin is named Arlene Harbison. Arlene reached out to me and asked me to cover her uncle's story thanks to Jasmine of Hands Off My Podcast, who also covered the case. And the funny thing is, Arlene's uncle's been on my list to cover for a while now. I saw that she was going to be at the True Crime Paranormal Festival, and I was going to ask her then if I could cover her uncle's case. But she beat me to the draw and asked me first. Arlene is in search of answers as to who murdered her uncle, Leon Laureles. She's the type of person I feel like I've known for ages. I sometimes get that great connect feeling with certain people, and she's definitely one of them. You can see the kindness and sadness at the same time in her eyes. When you lose someone you're close to, that pain just never goes away. Over time, yes, the pain dulls, but you never forget that person and how much they meant to you. Arlene came with an entourage of incredible people as well. There was her very supportive wife, Leah, Bree from a fantastic resource called Uncovered.com, who incidentally used to live in the apartment that was either above or below Ed Buck. Ed Buck was my last episode's case. What a coinkydink, right? And then there was Ariana from Utah Cold Cases. Now don't let that name fool you, as Ariana reaches out to all 50 states, not just Utah, in efforts to help victims' families find answers. While Leon's case continues to run cold, we know that there are people out there with information they've been sitting on for 27 years. Information that could have solved this case and given Leon's family some unicorn justice for his callous death. But those with the information are chicken shits who are in hiding. Secrets kept to save their own asses and careers most likely. I believe that they're not just cowards, but they're not good people either, although they pretend to be. Some are law enforcement, and they hide in plain sight with the knowledge of who murdered Leon. The Brown County law enforcement of 1996 had also done a completely shit job with this case. There's been hardly any movement on it since the year it happened, which means 27 years of Brown County law enforcement officers in and out of their offices, and all have done pretty much zero on the case, although they claim there is still an active investigation going on. Nearly 30 fucking years have gone by, and I say bullshit. It's not active. This case was cold the night it happened. Oh wait, let me correct myself. I guess they announced at one point that there was a person of interest in 2014, but that person has since taken their own life. More on this person of interest later. And all the while on the Brown County webpage, The officers stand there like good old boys with shit-eating grins. It wasn't until 2020 that the case was finally reopened by the Texas Rangers. Yet still, nothing has come of it. Now let's get a little more into the backstory for this case. It was a comfortable 66 degrees in Brownwood, Texas, the spring night of May 9, 1996. The sun had long since set, and it was now 11:30 p.m. in the Kroger grocery store parking lot. Here sat 30-year-old Leon Laureles, who went by Leon in his 1988 black Ford Thunderbird. His nighttime shift at Kroger's would start in only half an hour. Leon liked to be early so he could go into the store and greet his coworkers and ready himself for his shift. But Leon, the ever-responsible and dependable employee, would not make that shift. Leon was born a Capricorn on January 3, 1966. He was a quiet guy and definitely had the caretaker gene. Growing up, he spent much of his time helping others. He took care of his elderly sick parents in Brady, Texas, even getting his learner's permit to drive at the age of 14 and running countless errands for them. Leon was the youngest of 9 children. Brady, Texas is where Leon and Arlene grew up. It's a very small town where most people knew each other and what was going on in each other's lives. In high school, Leon was part of the school's marching band and he played the trumpet. Leon was also very close to his niece Arlene. They were only a few years apart in age and really were more like big brother and little sister as well as best friends. With Leon's parents being ill, he had Arlene for his main support. One of Leon's sisters was Arlene's mom. Arlene wasn't close to her mom, as her mom was a bit emotionally abusive to her. Arlene feels it was because her mom didn't want her, and thankfully she had Leon to rely on as her protector. Arlene, too, was in the marching band, and she played the saxophone at Brady High School. The 2 family members really loved to be in each other's company. They'd spend time outside of school listening to music and dancing at the local dance hall on Saturdays. This was one of their favorite activities to do together, and probably one of the most fondest memories for Arlene. Every Saturday the dance hall would provide a live band. It was mostly Mexican music, but there they would dance the cumbias together, even though neither one could speak Spanish. But it was a place where whole families could go and enjoy themselves for the evening. Arlene said she'll treasure these memories until the day she dies. While Leon was busy being a caretaker, he didn't have much time for hobbies. He did, however, have a passion for cooking, dancing, and music. Some of his favorite musical artists were pop divas of the time era, like Madonna and Celine Dion. Leon's father passed away when Leon was just 19 years old, and his mother when he was 21 years old. Not too long after that is when Leon would move 45 minutes north to Brownwood, Texas. This is where Arlene was living now. He moved in with Arlene as she was a single mom and had her 3 sons. Leon got a job at Kroger's where he worked the nighttime shift, and during the day he was able to watch over Arlene's 3 sons while she worked at Walmart. Arlene had been married to an abusive man at one time, though she had always known she was a lesbian. But those damn small towns, especially in southern states, they force people like Arlene and Leon to suppress their truths for fear of their lives being jeopardized. If they don't go on to live a traditional lifestyle with the husband or wife and 2.5 kids, they're in danger. So, with her abusive husband gone, Leon was again a wonderful support system and help for her. Flash forward to the year 1996. Arlene no longer really needed the help with her sons, so Leon was pretty much free to explore his own life and passions. Arlene was excited for Leon to be able to do this, as he had spent so many years being the caretaker of others. He was now able to do for himself and have some fun. He was 30 years old, stood 6 feet tall, weighed 200 pounds, and he was considered a big, cuddly teddy bear by most who knew him. Leon was well loved by just about everyone. He was kind, thoughtful. He loved to give birthday and Christmas gifts to friends, family, and coworkers. The customers at Kroger also adored him, and many of them reached out to Arlene after his murder to tell her what a kind, caring, and gentle man Leon was. For the most part, though, Leon was a homebody. He didn't live a high-risk lifestyle other than being gay in Texas. He wasn't a heavy drinker, and he didn't do drugs at all. He was soft-spoken, and he never raised his voice in anger. He also never complained, although some might say Leon was dealt a crummy life from not being able to really just be a kid and enjoy growing up. He was a giver, and he'd do anything for anybody who needed it. There came a time in 1996, however, that Leon was a little worried about his safety. He wasn't just gay, but he was also Hispanic in a small, conservative Texas town full of good old boys. While he could quietly hide his gayness in a closet, being Hispanic wasn't as easy to conceal. And within time, after Leon started to date someone, his sexual identity would come to light by the wrong people. Not long before his death, Leon told a cousin that there was someone who was angry with him and he wasn't sure why. The person threatening Leon was a state trooper. Leon told the cousin that the trooper had threatened to kill him if he didn't stop seeing his daughter. Now remember, Leon was deep in his closet. He hadn't even come out to Arlene, so he surely wasn't going to out himself to his cousin. But Arlene, she just knew through some of his mannerisms and the fact that he never dated or had a girlfriend that Leon was gay. And it just didn't matter. His sexual identity, or hers for that matter, was just something they never talked about. For some reason, that trooper thought Leon was dating his son. But actually, Leon was dating an openly gay teacher at his and Arlene's former high school back in Brady. The sheriff's office and the trooper's office share a building in Brown County. The colleagues would see each other pretty much every day, and I thought that was kind of interesting that they were housed in the same building. Apparently, the sheriff thought that his son was also seeing Leon as well. His son is the one that was on the person of interest list that took his life in 2014. Apparently, he had gone into Kroger's Market looking for Leon the night Leon was murdered. It was either to warn Leon or to see if he was okay. Here's the problem I see with Leon dating either one of these officers' sons. With Leon being as quiet and shy as he was, I find it extremely hard to believe he was playing the field like that. I feel if anything, he was just being a good friend to these guys and a listener. And though it's purely speculation on my part, but maybe both of these sons turned to Leon for advice on how to come out to their families. Not that Leon would know that, as he never came out to his family. But this trooper and this sheriff both feared their sons were gay. So they went after the one man in town they knew was gay, and that was Leon. Arlene feels like Leon wanted to come out. He wanted to find true love and have a family. And what Leon wanted most of all was just to be happy. From talking more with Arlene, I was able to sculpt and even compare Leon to other people I know. I feel Leon was a lovable, cuddly guy. I imagine when he hugged you or smiled, you felt safe with him. He may not have been vocal about a lot of things, but he seemed to be a fierce protector of those he loved. Arlene confirmed Leon was very much a protector. He was her person. Along with protective, she added the following. He was shy, quiet, and obedient. And if you think about it, it couldn't have been easy for Leon to find love interests in his small town of good old boys with white supremacist values, especially when you're someone trying to hide your truth. In case you're wondering what I mean by good old boys, in my mind they're white men who go to church and live by what they think is God's word, although those words don't apply to them, which is a contradiction of values they live by, of course. They pretty much only like women for sex, housework, and cooking for them. Oh, and their women have to be white women. In fact, the people that they surround themselves with have to be white and straight. No gays, trans, bisexuals, or any of the other sexuals unless it's hetero. I imagine sex with them is pretty vanilla too. Unless they're hypocrites, which so many are. On May 9, 1996, 11:30 p.m., Leon is seen in his car at Kroger's by a coworker. It will be the last time Leon is seen alive. At midnight, when his shift was about to begin, a coworker went outside to see if Leon was still out there, but his car was nowhere to be seen. About 12:15, a coworker of his called Leon's brother George, who also lived in Brownwood, to see if Leon was there. But Leon, who was now living with George, wasn't home. George quickly got into his vehicle and he started to search for Leon in Leon's car. As George was driving around, 2 emergency vehicles flew past him. A female coworker of Leon's, who was also very worried about him, she called 911 to see if anyone had reported a recent accident. She was told yes, there was an accident out at the gun range. But the coworker didn't think much of it, as the gun range wasn't on Leon's way to Kroger's. In fact, it was in the neighboring town of Early, Texas. And honestly, it didn't seem like somewhere Leon would go anyway. 2 calls to 911 that were made from drivers passing by the remote rifle range off Farm to Market Road 2126 in Early, Texas, had reported a vehicle fire. When first responders arrived, which initially was just the fire department, they not only saw a car ablaze, but they found a man's body lying face down about 6 feet from the blazing car. That man was Leon, and he had been shot in the back of his head execution style. The sheriff's department and the owner of the gun range, who also happened to be the town's funeral director and owner of the funeral home, were on scene just a little bit after the fire department. Now get this. The guy, the funeral director / owner and gun range owner, he also founded something called Brownwood Mafia. The Brownwood Mafia. This sounds like a bunch of dudes up to no good to me. In this mob-style gang were at least one Texas Ranger, the sheriff of 1996, Bill Donahue, his successor, the next sheriff of Brownwood, the district attorney, a judge, and the mayor. If that has you scratching your head saying, "What the fuck?" you're not alone. I'm right there with you. Leon's car was immediately taken to the junkyard once the fire was out. No crime scene investigation was ever performed on it, which to me and others involved directly in trying to find justice for Leon, it stinks severely like a cover-up. The murder happened fast and clean with no investigation whatsoever afterwards. Don't you smell the stink? And as quickly as the potential evidence was cleaned up, the sheriff's department declared themselves unable to work the case due to a conflict of interest. To this day, they've not explained what exactly that conflict was, although it's been surmised it was probably the sheriff who believed his son, the one who took his life in 2014, was seeing Leon. When Arlene got the call that Leon was dead, she screamed, and she sobbed into the phone. She also harbored an abundance of guilt. See, Arlene had worked Walmart the day of May 9th. When she was off her shift, she left to the parking lot and she saw Leon's car there. Always, when Leon visited Walmart to do his shopping, he would stop and say hey to her. But she didn't see him in the store that day, and she wondered if she should go back in and look for him. Ultimately, she decided she was tired and wanted to go home to her kids, and she skipped going to find Leon that day. Come to find out, Leon was not in Walmart, even though his car was there in the parking lot. What that was about, no one really knows. At Leon's service, Arlene latched on to Leon's casket, and she literally had to be pulled from it by family members. She just couldn't bear to leave Leon alone. The next few months, Arlene floated through a surreal-type existence, and that's because part of her had died with Leon. Arlene continues to search for answers of who killed her uncle. Her crusade has been vast, but most law enforcement still refuses to work with her. At the time of Leon's murder, his brother George was the only one that they would talk to. And this to me is just plain stupid. Had they interviewed all members of Leon's family, they possibly could have gotten way more insight into Leon's life and who might have murdered him. Unless they already knew. There's a lot of information out there that has not come to light. Little tiny bits are finally coming together after all of these years. There are things law enforcement know that they're not sharing with Arlene or anyone else. And I don't really believe it's to protect the case, but rather to protect the guilty parties. Arlene had been refused an autopsy report for Leon time and time again. Just within the past few weeks did one finally materialize. Let me remind you, Leon was murdered in 1996, 27 years ago, and she is just receiving it in 2023? That's crazy bullshit. And get this, the autopsy basically says, yeah, Leon was shot. A private investigator has been hired. Because of this and Arlene's crew, little by little information is starting to come in. Will it be enough to solve the case? I certainly feel like the answers are coming and the killer or killers are running out of time. There are some people of interest Arlene has shared with me. I will not be revealing names because when the case is solved, I would never want to do anything that might jeopardize justice for Leon. The only name that I have shared with you is the sheriff of 1996, Bill Donahue, and that's only because it's public record. The list stands as follows. There's a well-known drug dealer in Brownwood that law enforcement seems to protect. He's on the list. As well, his friend is on the list. But Leon didn't do drugs. He may have saw something he shouldn't have, leading the drug dealer and his friend to kill him, but it most definitely was not a drug deal gone bad. These two men are said to be hateful of anyone not white and straight. So even if Leon didn't see something that might jeopardize a drug deal, this guy and his friend might have thought it was just fun to kill a gay man. Also on the list was the sheriff of 1996, the one whose son took his own life, but this sheriff passed away in 2009. And lastly, the state trooper who threatened to kill Leon is on the list. It is thought that two people murdered Leon, and it seemed to be pretty well thought out. Remember, the state trooper and the sheriff were located in the same building, and very quickly the sheriff department excused themselves from Leon's case due to conflict of interest. There is also said to be a red and either white or beige pickup truck that didn't have a truck bed that's in question. I'm not 100% clear if the truck was parked next to Leon's car in the Kroger parking lot, or maybe it was seen leaving the site of where Leon was murdered. The co-worker at Kroger's who also saw Leon's car at 11:30 in the parking lot said that there was a vehicle parked next to his, but she couldn't recall what the vehicle looked like. It could have been the red and white pickup that's been mentioned in a couple of articles. Arlene still hangs on to the guilt that she could have done something to save Leon. It's been a struggle to let go of that guilt, even though there was nothing she could have done to save him. How could one possibly foretell the future for this tragedy? Especially when the verbal communication about Leon's sexuality, well, it was never openly discussed by them, or anyone in his family at that time. Arlene promises she's trying to let go of the guilt, but it's not been easy for her. And I do wonder if she feels letting go of the guilt will lessen her drive for the fight for justice of Leon. Arlene is a strong woman. Stronger than she believes, and I know the drive will still be there no matter what. I personally feel that justice for Leon is coming soon. And as Sophocles said, time sees and hears all things and discloses all. I believe the time is now. Should you have any information on the murder of Leon Laureles, please contact the Heart of Texas Crime Stoppers at 800-222-TIPS. That's 800-222-TIPS. 8477. When Leon does see some justice, I'll be doing a follow-up to this story, Rainbow Warriors. I love you so much, and you matter. Remember, it's not a crime to be gay, unless you're a murderer.